I woke up with a pounding headache and a mouth drier than the Sahara. Zach's birthday bash the night before had been epic, but I couldn't remember how I made it home, or if I even did. The grogginess vanished when I looked around. This wasn't my place. It was a hospital ward. What the hell was I doing here? I was wearing one of those flimsy hospital gowns that tie in the back. It was freezing and my head felt like it might split open. Note to self, never mix tequila and beer again. The room had 2 cots and a nightstand. The gray walls reeked of disinfectant. How'd I end up here? I muttered. You're in the nut house, buddy. We're gonna fix that broken brain of yours, came a creepy giggle from the other bed, the occupant hidden under a blanket. Who are you? I swung my legs over the side of the bed, noticing one was chained to the frame. Panic set in. Who chained me up? What's going on here? I shouted. Silence. I wanted to yank that blanket off, but the chain was too short. I lay back down, racking my brain about the previous night. The last thing I remembered was leaving the club with Kate and Steph, a pair of hot twins who invited my buddy Jake and me to an after-party at their place. Everything after that was a blur. I needed answers. Surely this was all a misunderstanding. The heavy metal door suggested yelling for help was pointless. The weirdo had said nut house. I got chills thinking about being committed. Staying calm was tough when this didn't seem like a normal hospital. Being chained down was terrifying. What was I supposed to do? My breathing quickened as fear took over. Maybe I could get some sleep and wake up from this nightmare, back home in my warm bed with Amy. But as I started to drift off, I heard noises. The door unlocking and footsteps entering. A creepy dude in a stained lab coat came in, followed by a heavy-set woman pushing a cart with a tray of food. The fake doctor approached me. What's your problem? Who are you people? Where am I? Let me out of here, I demanded. The quack took out a cigarette, exhaling a thick cloud of smoke. You're sick, John Robertson. We're going to take care of that for you. The blanket lump echoed in a raspy voice. Take care of you. Take care of you. Shut it, the doctor barked. Marge, give him some food and take him to the OR. He's getting on my nerves. The lump went berserk, thrashing around until Marge manhandled it off the bed, slammed it onto the cart, dumped some slop into a bowl and wheeled it out. He turned to me, blowing more smoke. As for you, we've got you scheduled for a transorbital lobotomy tomorrow morning. It's an effective treatment. Been doing it for years with good results. We'll give it a shot. A lobotomy? Are you insane? I'm perfectly fine. Let me out of here. I started panicking. Johnny, leaving isn't an option right now. But don't worry, everything will be just fine after your little procedure, he said with a twisted grin before locking the door behind him. I sat on the bed, shaking, fighting back tears. This couldn't be real. It had to be a nightmare. But how did that psycho know my name? His look and mannerisms seemed straight out of the 1950s. So many questions, no answers. I was starving, so I forced down some of the slop, picking out wriggly things I didn't want to think about. My roomie was still MIA as night fell. How'd I get roped into this nut house? What horrible things awaited me? This place was making my head spin. At least the hangover was gone, making it easier to think straight for a plan. For now, sleep was my only option, hoping tomorrow would make more sense. Just as I started dozing off, the door flew open and something got hurled through. It was my roomie, still tightly wrapped in that blanket. As it fell open, I saw why. A shriveled, mangled corpse with broken bones and a face melted by acid. Bile rose in my throat from the putrid stench. He'd been rotting alive. I couldn't sleep with that in here. Escape was my only chance. I had to get creative and disgusting. I smeared the rancid bodily fluids all over my chained leg to help slip it through. It took every ounce of willpower not to vomit, but eventually I pulled free. Only then did I realize the door was locked from the outside. How could I get it open? I examined the heavy, rusting door. It looked like something out of a prison, not a hospital. There was nothing to use as a lockpick. The hall outside was eerily silent, no light or movement. Peering through the window, the place seemed abandoned. All of a sudden, the door creaked open behind me. I jumped back under the covers, pretending to sleep. Footsteps approached, and a gravelly voice spoke in my ear. Doesn't that chain hurt after such a stunt? Before I could react, I felt a prick in my arm and everything went black. I woke up in the daylight, rechained to the bed, groggy as hell. The rotting stiffs were still there, now crawling with maggots. The doctor sauntered in and I yelled, "You sick bastard, let me out of here!" "Can't do that. You're here for a reason. You've got a condition that needs treatment," he said way too calmly before sparking up another cancer stick. "But how? I don't remember anything," I pleaded, trying to stay composed. "You and your friend got out of hand at the club. Our nurses brought you here, said you were being aggressive and disturbing the peace. If you can't control yourself, you're sick and need our care." He exhaled a cloud of smoke. "We'll take you to surgery soon and then everything will be right as rain." "Wait, where's Jake? You let him go already?" A knot twisted in my gut. "Nope, we took care of him already." "Took care of him how, you creep?" I shouted. "No need for name-calling. I operated, but there were some complications. Split his skull wide open. Pure accident. What's a guy supposed to do with a body at that point?" He shrugged. White-hot rage burned through me. "You goddamn monster, what do you want from me?" "Just doing my job, son." He ashed his cigarette right onto the corpse, then turned for the door. "Oh, and your roomie here is keeping you company for now? Marge will be in to feed you boys before we get you prepped." He came back, tied my hands to the bed with a strip of tarp, and left again. Sure enough, Marge barged in, spooning God knows what into my mouth while I gagged and choked. Eventually, the quack and his goons returned, looking like they escaped from an insane asylum circa 1950. They strapped me onto a gurney and wheeled me down hallways filled with the haunting sounds of other patients. Screams, laughter, moans. The stench of rot and decay was overwhelming. This place felt more like a portal to hell than a hospital. As we approached the OR, I looked out a window and saw normal city buildings outside. I realized with gut-wrenching horror that this Gothic sanitarium was housed in some abandoned relic that should have been condemned decades ago. My mind raced. What kind of sick individuals resurrected this place? I got strapped down on an archaic operating table, powerless to resist. The mad doctor loomed over me, grinning. "Don't worry, Johnny, this'll be over before you know it." My mind was racing, thoughts jumbling together. This place seemed trapped in the 1950s, with antiquated lobotomy procedures still practiced. It was like the last 70 years never happened. Were these people living in their own twisted reality? I started to wonder if I was the one suffering from delusions. They wheeled me into the OR, and the rotten smell of decaying flesh made my empty stomach lurch. I cranked my neck to the side and saw a mound of body bags in the corner. It was too much. I couldn't even get sick. The doctor and his goons seemed unbothered, going about their gruesome business. They moved me onto a rusted metal table under a blinding surgical lamp. I squeezed my eyes shut against the light. This couldn't be happening. "All right, let's get him prepped," the mad doctor's voice rang out. I felt hands restraining me as they strapped my arms and legs down to the table. I opened my eyes, instantly regretting it as the lamp seared my retinas. In that moment, I wasn't thinking about dying. I was more confused than anything about what twisted reality this place existed in. I tried shielding my eyes with my hands, but they were bound too tight. An unsettling calm came over me as I realized I was likely headed for the same fate as those body bags in the corner. I couldn't help but let out a dark chuckle. "You guys could at least clean up this pigsty," I muttered. "Think this is funny, do ya?" The doctor's raspy voice was suddenly in my face. "You'll see how hilarious it is when we're digging around in that sick brain of yours." "Actually, Doc, I do have one question if you'll humor me," I said, stalling for time even though I knew it was futile. "Make it quick. We're on a schedule here," he growled impatiently. "What is this place really? Who are you people? Why are you doing these twisted lobotomy experiments?" My voice raised with each question until I was practically shouting. The reality of my predicament was finally crashing down. "You ask too many questions," the doctor sighed. "This is Shawshank Psychiatric Hospital. I'm the head physician, and I perform these procedures because they work. That's all you need to know." Now let's get started. No, 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 I cut him off, thrashing against the restraints wildly. Those lobotomy horrors were banned ages ago. What kind of sci-fi nightmare dimension is this place? The doctor laughed condescendingly. Banned? By who? The government quacks who don't know their asses from their lobotomies? I've been perfecting this treatment for decades, son. It's the most effective means of curing the human mind. Then you're totally divorced from reality, you sick fuck. I spat, rage and terror taking over. Maybe so, but I'm still the one calling the shots here. He grinned wickedly as he raised a sickening-looking surgical pick. Now let's take a peek under the old frontal lobe, shall we? I strained against the leather restraints with every ounce of strength, screaming bloody murder as the twisted doctor closed in on me with that barbaric instrument. Just as the pick was an inch from my right eye socket, the OR doors burst open. It was Marge, blubbering like a lunatic. Dr. Graves, we got a big problem. Jensen's escaped, and he's already took out 3 orderlies. The doctor whipped around, dropping his tools and rushing towards Marge with the orderlies in tow. Well, what are you waiting for, you fat cow? Sound the alarm and get every able-bodied man searching every inch of this facility. I want that psycho found and subdued before he... His ranting faded away as they stampeded out of the OR, leaving me alone and still strapped down. I could scarcely believe my luck. Was this my chance? I struggled harder than ever, my wrists already getting rubbed raw from the coarse leather restraints. After what felt like an eternity, I managed to pull my right hand free. I scrambled to undo the other straps, finally able to sit up on the table. My eye caught movement by the door. A figure stepped through wielding a baton. Not one of the orderlies, though. This was someone different. "Who are you?" I demanded, ready to grab something and defend myself. "Relax, friend. I'm here to get you out," the stranger replied calmly, using the baton to undo the Velcro straps on my ankles. "Name's Caleb. I've been planning an escape for weeks." "How'd you know I'd be here?" "Didn't. I just got lucky," he smiled, helping me to my feet. "Now let's move before they come back." I grabbed a blood-stained medical gown off a nearby rack and followed Caleb out into the corridor. He moved with purpose, clearly familiar with the layout of this twisted asylum. "Where are we going?" I asked in a hoarse whisper as we crept past barred cell doors. Deranged faces leered out at us, some laughing maniacally while others sobbed uncontrollably. "Underground tunnel system connects all the buildings," Caleb replied without breaking stride. "If we can make it across to the old administration wing, there's an exterior exit." We turned a corner and I glimpsed an all-too-familiar sight, the lobotomized shuffling aimlessly like extras from a zombie movie, their faces disfigured and degraded in ways that turned my stomach. "What the hell are those things?" I recoiled in horror. "The unlucky souls who've already been operated on," Caleb stated grimly. "Complete mental vegetaves, hardly even human anymore." One of the shambling figures turned our way, baring decaying teeth and letting out a guttural groan. I felt like I was trapped in my own personal night terror. "This way," Caleb hissed, shoving open a door and pulling me through with him. We found ourselves in a dank, dimly lit basement area, shelves of antiquated medical supplies and equipment covered in cobwebs and dust. "How do you know this place so well?" I asked as we carefully made our way through the cluttered rows. Caleb shook his head solemnly. "Because until a few weeks ago, I was one of the guards here, patrolling the hallways, keeping order." My eyes widened in disbelief. "You mean you were actually working alongside those maniacs upstairs?" "Not by choice." He raised his hands defensively. "I got hired for security detail. Had no idea this place was some kind of throwback psycho ward. By the time I caught on to their absolutely depraved practices, it was too late." I could sense there was more to his story, but the thunderous boom of the door being kicked open interrupted my thoughts. 6 hulking men in dingy white uniforms exploded into the basement, wielding batons and crude restraints. "There's the psychos! After them, boys!" The lead guard's voice was a phlegm-soaked growl as he pointed in our direction. "This way!" Caleb shoved me ahead of him as we scrambled deeper into the basement. My bare feet crunched on decades of debris and fallen medical supplies. The guards were in hot pursuit, their dirtied boots clobbering the floor not far behind. Up ahead, I could see a metal door with a small window, the exit Caleb had mentioned. We sprinted towards it full tilt as the unhinged guards closed the gap, their rancid breaths washing over us. So close. Caleb reached the door first, throwing all his weight against it. It didn't budge. I joined him, both of us slamming our shoulders uselessly into the unyielding steel. "It's jammed shut from the other side," he yelled in frustration. The guards were right on top of us now, bludgeons and restraints raised to deliver some brutal discipline. This couldn't be how it ended, not after coming so close to escape. Caleb looked at me with grim determination. "I'll hold them off as long as I can. You find another way." Before I could protest, he charged headlong into the bloodthirsty mob with his baton swinging. I watched in shock as they swarmed him, raining down vicious blows until he crumpled to the ground.